So when you press record, unleash hell.
Are you not entertained? 2020.
This what we podcast in life echoes in eternity.
That's a great line. Actually,
That was like that. I love that line.
That would hit me right in the heart. I was like,
Yeah, I love
dope.
that line, man.
All right. Well, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome back, guys. Are you not entertained? If so, please subscribe.
Another epic podcast, dare I say, from Nightcap. Cheers, everybody. Going to be doing 2000s The Gladiator. Before we kick it off, what are you drinking tonight? What's going on?
Oh man, I found it took a bitch to find, but I found the new Truly iced teas. Oh man, it's great. I'm like I'm a few deep in right now, so definitely check it out.
All right, yeah. Drink a little Jameson, coffee and Jameson, cold brew.
And, nice. I'll have to try that out.
This stuff is tasty. This stuff is dangerous, actually.
Oh, same with these Trulies, man. You can't even taste it. It'll knock you on your ass if you have a few, but you're just thinking you're drinking tea.
Well, before we get into synopsis here, if anyone's new to the Nightcap, I'm going ahead and put up the grading system. Part of what we do when we do our reviews is break it down, give it a numerical grade to just kind of judge, how much we really like a movie versus how much we think it's okay or whatever. And it's just kind of fun. So if anyone's curious, we'll put that up now. And then also don't forget to hit the like button. It's free.
It's free. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah, so please, if you can hit the like and subscribe button, that throws us a little bone here. But let me get into the synopsis and let's jump into the Gladiator. All right, Gladiator is a 2000 epic historical drama film directed by Ridley Scott, written by David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson. The film was co-produced and released by DreamWorks and Universal Pictures. It stars Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, and it follows the Roman general Maximus Decimus Meridius, try to say that fast, who's betrayed when Commodus, the ambitious son of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, murders his father and seizes the throne. Reduced to slavery, Maximus becomes a gladiator and rises up through the ranks to avenge the murders of his family and the emperor. Like we said, the movie came out in 2000, had a budget of 103 million and a box office of 460 million.
Nice.
Definitely the highest grossing movie of that year. And it's kind of a legendary movie now.
It is. Absolutely.
I don't know if I saw this in the theater. I don't really remember. It's been a while, obviously.
Really?
It's been like 20 years, so maybe I did. But at the time, I mean, this movie really changed things and really kind of kicked off a bunch of these kind of inspired, I think they call them sword and sandal movies, right?
Sword and sandals, yeah. Do you like gladiator movies?
I don't know. Of all the ones that kind of preceded it or actually came after it, this really still is the best of the bunch.
And, this...
Ridley Scott, I mean, what can you say? The guy does big movies, big action movies well. He knows how to handle it.
Absolutely. I remember I watched this in the theater because I used to work as a theater. That was my first job. I worked in the theater as an usher. So we got to watch free movies. So right after work, just went to go watch this by myself and I loved it. I think I watched it again like a couple times after also. And yeah, this is like you said, this was like, took the whole sword, like, was it sword and sandal you said?
Yeah, sword and sandal.
But this is still the measuring stick to all those.
Yeah,
like nothing ever topped this one. And yeah, man, this was I'm glad that we picked this movie. It was still one of my favorite movies to this day.
And I think this is the first movie, at least that I can remember, Russell Crowe, a very young Russell Crowe, obviously in this one. What else did he do before this that really kicked off?
I think this was his launching. I honestly cannot think of any other movie before this that he was in. I think this was like his launching pad because you're like, who the hell is this guy? And then after this movie, he was like in every other movie after that.
I mean, I'm sure he maybe did some movies in Australia, maybe before he came over here to the U.S. But he did do LA Confidential before this.
Yeah, I love that movie too. There you go.
That's a great movie. But for me, this is really the one that really put him on the map. And I mean, as a leading man, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves into the acting, but he really nails it, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Maximus, he's every bit of it and really fit the shoes well. But let's get into the plot. Overall, on the plot, one thing I put in my notes here, this movie is just. We're probably going to use a bunch of times epic, but it's like almost like Shakespearean, like in the terms of like, you have your hero and he goes through the full hero's journey, right? Where he gets, his family's murdered.
Yeah.
He gets exiled. He's in slavery and you just watch him come up here. And then, even in the ending, when he wins, it's still like tragic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have these big speeches and everything. And so, yeah, I mean, this movie's pretty much got it all. It's got drama. It's got action. It's got big sets. We get to see ancient Rome, a really cool time, in history that we all read about, but it gives awesome visuals to it. So overall for plot, I give it an 8.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Same thing too. I gave it an 8. Like you touched a lot of it. Like it's a story about arc about Maximus, how he wasn't necessarily betrayed, kind of betrayed while he's going to be the rightful heir to become Caesar because of Aurelius told him that. But then Commodus comes in, and now this unfit person takes power by nefarious means. Crooked senators, and I'm not talking about current events, guys. Although I could be, but like you said, it's a great and he makes his triumphant return, masking himself to be the lost general. It's epic. Like you said, that's the first time I'm going to use it, but I'll use epic throughout this entire episode also.
This isn't really necessarily, well, I guess this is on the plot, but one thing I will say, this all could have been avoided if Maximus just had a better poker face. Like that moment when he finds out that Commodus, or kind of connects the dots, if you will, that Commodus kills the emperor. Like if he would have just like played that a little bit differently, I'm pretty sure everything would have worked out. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
he just goes gun ho in there. Like we're doing this now. The emperor has been murdered, and it really backfires. For being the awesome strategist, general, the best general of Rome. He really just kind of went guns ho in there, and
But he was very fiery, and that was his father figure, and he finds out he's murdered. Although, take my hand. He's like, okay, there you go. And then next scene, he's like, get these senators. We're killing this guy.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, well, let's get into the production here. Why don't you kick it off? What'd you give it in terms of production?
Let's start this off right. 20 out of 20. It's epic in every meaning of the word.
It really is.
The sets, the score, cinematography, all the costumes, all the battles, all the extras. That's a lot to wrangle in, and they did it perfect manner. And it goes to show that this one, I want to say this won best cinematography in the Oscars for that year.
It did in the BAFTA. I don't know if it won it in the Oscars.
Okay. But regardless, it's probably nominated at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, 20 out of 20.
Picture. I mean, you can give it that
alone. Yeah.
And watching it now, this movie's 20 years old. Watching it recently, looks great, and the costumes
it looks fantastic.
Great, the costumes look fantastic.
Yeah.
Some of the CG you see a little bit, but for the time period, it really looks excellent.
Yeah, it's a little bit dated, just a little bit. Like it could, if they wanted to retweak it for like a re-release, maybe just tweak it a little bit. But it still holds up.
Yeah, it definitely does, and the score itself, everything. I don't know if that's like Enya or whatever, it's like singing during like these ghostly moments. Kind of put you in the zone. There's big sets, big scenes, with lots of extras. But really, Scott, I mean, is there any more capable hands like of these types of movies now? I mean, and this is really the 1-2 movie where he really kicked off, where he really does all this. I mean, he'd done sci-fi and these other great movies to this point, but he really showed on this one that he could really handle these types of big movie types, like epic scenes here, and it kicked off other movies for him as well. I think coming down, but yeah, I give it a 19. I mean, honestly, it looks great, sounds great. I think I even won an award for best sound. So I mean, there's really a lot to gush on here. But let's move into the acting, the performances here. And I already kind of touched on it earlier, right? Russell Crowe as Maximus. I mean, he just really fills the role completely. And he's just your consummate alpha, right? I mean, throughout the whole movie, he's capable in every sense. Nothing's like too big for him, no matter what, even through all the hardships he's put up against. I mean, he pretty much prevails in here, right? And he's the general, and he's not just the general, right? Like sitting in the back, he's also the general who's leading the cavalry in.
He's leading the charge.
Yeah.
So him and his dog are leading the charge. Like, follow me. I'm like, I'm following you.
It's classic, right? And the other performances too. I mean, we can't get too far without talking about Joaquin Phoenix as this, like just slimy, sniveling Commodus. And man, Joaquin Phoenix is a heck of an actor.
Oh,
and he plays the yin to alpha, to the alpha of Crowe's character,
the beta to his alpha.
Yeah, it's really gives you this really clear cut picture. But he's also kind of like a pathetic creature too, like. In terms of villain, and one thing I put in my notes is like, he's not one of those villains that kind of scares you. You almost pity him because he's just so pathetic. I was watching the extended version, and it has the scene where he goes down, like, I don't know, somewhere in the palace, and they have all the busts of like the old emperors, and he sees his dad, and he has like this crying fit and like hacks at the bust of him, the statue of him. And you kind of see what really how pathetic he is. And even Marcus kind of hints at it earlier in the movie when he says, your failure as a son is only because of my failure as a
As
father
a father.
too,
Yeah.
And he's really kind of a sad character. I don't want to touch too much more on the acting. What other points did you have in terms of the performances?
Well, you hit it. Like Crow obviously carried the movie. I mean, he won Best Actor
Yeah.
for this movie, but in a sense, but Phoenix went toe to toe with him acting wise. Also, I'll even throw in like he obviously died in the very beginning, but Harris as Marcus Aurelius, fantastic job also. So I gave the acting 26. I wanted to give it a little bit higher, but then Proximo, he kind of hammed it up a little bit. He was kind of campy, like
Yeah.
how he talked, like in the very beginning. But maybe that's just how he is, like a gladiator. He's supposed to be kind of like over dramatic and all that. But it kind of took away from like how serious Crow was, how serious Phoenix was, how serious Harris was. But yeah, 26. The acting chops were definitely there for all across the board.
Yeah, I give it a 25. So I'm right there, right there next to you. As we kind of transition into the directing, one thing I will say about this movie, so it's not a total gush fest. When I was trying to think about what movie I could compare this to, like it kept coming up in my mind, like in terms of Braveheart, because that's another
Oh,
kind of
absolutely.
epic, kind of semi-historical, right? Kind of loose on the
Very loose on this
historicities.
one. Yeah, very
Yeah,
loose on this
this
one.
one too, right? Kind of storytelling, but I was thinking to myself, like how does this one compare? And that was another movie we did not too long ago. And as much as I like Gladiator, there was always felt like there was a little something lacking, at least for me. And so getting to the characters, and this kind of touches on the directing, as great as I thought the performances were, there's not a lot of like character arc. Maximus is essentially the same guy you meet in the very first scene all the way through the end. Even Commodus's character, you see him in the very beginning, right when he's already like scheming with his sister, and then in the trailer thing, whatever they call that, when they're going down to the battle scene, he's always portraying himself, trying to project strength, where you can tell he's very insecure. In a lot of the characters here, there's just not a giant arc in terms of their development. They're very kind of monotoned, and they play their archetypes well, but they are what they are. And I was always trying to think, like, what isn't this story kind of lacking a little bit? And the one thing I would say, at least compared to Braveheart 2, besides the arcs, is there's just like a little bit of charisma missing. And I think too the ideals. The movie essentially is like a revenge movie.
It
You
is.
know what I mean? We're following a Maximus' story here, and it's a great story. But whereas Braveheart kind of transitions out of revenge into like this push for freedom, even though they kind of hint at it in this movie, right? Talking about giving it back to the people,
Big
right?
enough to the people.
But at the same time, they're kind of speak disparagingly of the mob. It's just Rome, the mob. It never really quite hits that kind of like same note. Whereas like in Braveheart, we all know that iconic, freedom.
Yeah,
We all
freedom.
kind of feel like that inspiration at the end. You never really kind of get that from this movie.
I get where you're coming from in terms of that, but I'll disagree with you also, because I think this movie is every bit as epic as Braveheart. Yes, yes, I get that it didn't go above the whole revenge plot, which I mean, hell, what that was his main motivation. Like he didn't have like freedom or anything like that. He just wanted to go home to his wife and kid, and they were murdered. All right. So I'll give you that it doesn't flesh it out as much as it did Braveheart, but in terms of epicness, in terms of the scope of it, it's every bit as huge as Braveheart. And you see the acting chops, like the charisma. He wasn't as charismatic as William Wallace's character in terms of like speeches and big speeches and all that, but it was just Maximus's presence that gave him that that charisma also, that he didn't need to speak like William Wallace did. He
Yeah,
didn't
I
need
mean,
to.
what's kind of now that I think about it, what's kind of a hint too is like, I mean, you think about the opening too with Marcus Aurelius, and that's like a very strategic choice, right? And the emperor they chose to focus on, and obviously Marcus Aurelius is the famous Stoicist. And a lot of this movie is kind of embraces that philosophy of like stoicism. And you see that with Maximus, right? Kind of just accepting your fate and just going through it. So there's not a lot of the rah-rah speeches like you get
No.
when William Wallace is like aspiring like a whole country, right? Of
Yeah,
Scotland to like revolt
he didn't need
against the
to
king.
inspire a
Yeah.
whole country.
In this case, it's not. You know what I mean? It's really just Maximus's story. And like I said, that kind of he's trying to get revenge against this character here. But I'm not trying to take away that it's a bad movie, but just when I'm thinking about it compared to Braveheart, which is I think is a pretty comparable, even though it's maybe like 5, 6 years younger. I just think it kind of came a little bit up short there, but I still give it a high grade. I give it a 26.
Okay,
I
we're
think
almost there.
Ridley obviously did a great job, and it's still very enjoyable. And the performances themselves, it's I was struggling. I'm like, how much is it the performances? How much is the directing? I think it's both. They both did an excellent job.
Yeah, it definitely everything intermingled well. Like everything it just flowed very well in terms of like production, acting, and directing. It was all kind of like all leveled. It wasn't like
That's a
one
great
didn't
way.
like
Yeah.
yeah, one
That's
didn't
one thing
like
I,
take
I
over
put
the
too.
other.
I felt like everyone had their space, right? All the
Yeah.
characters, like you got a little bit of Commodus, you got a little bit of Maximus, like you said, Proximo, even Lucille's character, Connie
Hmm.
Nielsen's character, the sister. You got like they each had their time, their moments, like where they could shine.
I'm still not gonna agree with you that like you weren't totally crapping on this movie in terms of like comparing it to Braveheart, but I think it's every bit. Like these two are like up here with like the epic battle, like kind of like movie like this.
What did you give your directing score?
28.
28. Oh wow. Okay, good.
Well, yeah.
All right.
I
So,
mean, come on now.
let's kind of actually we can wrap it up a little bit too. We might even disagree. Well, I think I know what you give for X Factor, but we can even touch on this real quick too. Why don't you go ahead, give your notes for X Factor.
I'm back, guys. 10 out of 10. X stands for 10. 10
If you
factor.
didn't give it, I would be shocked.
Yeah, I love this movie. I love this movie. It's this was one of my favorite. It still is one of my favorite movies, and it's just that is just a man's movie, like an old school man's movie, toxic masculinity, if you will, whatever buzzword you guys want to use now.
Incredibly toxic.
Yeah, and yeah, I love this movie, and we need a Maximus right now in America. Who's gonna be America's Maximus right now? Who's gonna take the power away from the Senate and give it back to the people? We need a new Maximus here, guys.
Yep.
We need America's Maximus. Who's
Yeah.
it gonna be? Someone needs to step up.
I hear you on that. In terms of X Factor, I give it a 6.
Oh,
What I put here in my
hated this movie.
notes, and this kind of, kind of really what I took away from this one was, and like I said again, I couldn't help but compare it to Braveheart, was there wasn't quite like I said that emotional like
Yeah,
connection where like at the end of like I've seen Braveheart like I don't know how many times at the
I
end I'm
yeah.
still riled up, I'm still like just like
Mm-hmm.
amped at the end, like inspired. This movie it ends fairly strong, but it just doesn't have that big note. And another thing too, I would say that I think another reason why too I didn't get emotionally invested because again, this is like primarily revenge driven, but
Right.
it's Maximus's revenge. I think one thing they did good in the other movie was like you got to see the arc of how he met in Braveheart he meets his wife and then you
Right.
get to see them kind of court and you kind of grow and then they she ends up getting murdered. In this case we never meet the wife. She never says a
No.
word throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
We just see these kind of back flashes of her. Same thing with the son. We just see him running, what he thinks is his dad. And so there's just not that connection there. You know what I mean? So even though he's going for revenge, like I said, it's like his revenge and not me as a viewer. I'm not like as invested where I'm like, yeah, let's get that SOB. You know what I mean? Instead, I'm
Yeah.
just
It
kind of
doesn't
like,
hit
okay,
you. It
let's
doesn't
take,
hit you as hard.
yeah, it
It
doesn't
doesn't
hit
hit
you
you
as
as hard.
hard. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the only thing, like, again, that will kind of slide this movie. Now, overall, I still enjoyed the movie a lot. I gave it 84 for a score, very solid.
Okay.
But like I said, if there's anything I can criticize, these would be the things where I kind of took a little bit away where I couldn't kind of hit that like upper echelon for me.
Yeah, I get you. Like I gave it a 92, which it's just below what I gave Braveheart. I believe if I want to go back, I believe I gave a Braveheart 94 or 95.
I don't
And
know.
so, like I said, this to me was right up there with Braveheart. I obviously like Braveheart more, just from the points that you said. It hits harder for you just because you're more invested in the whole. First it was revenge for William Wallace, and then it was for the freedom of his country. And right now we're fighting for our freedom also. All right, I'll just keep
Yep.
mentioning that. And so it definitely hits you harder. While this one is purely revenge driven, and like you said, it doesn't hit as hard just because you didn't get that connection with the wife, with the kid, because you only saw one in the flashback, and then two like just when they were killed, pretty much, and it didn't go beyond that. Like, but he did touch upon it at the very end. He finally, at the very end, before he pretty much just flops down on the floor. All right, give the power back to the people.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he croaks pretty
One
much.
thing I'll say too, I'll give props to the extended version, even though it's already a long movie made longer. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Watching it now, this time I actually like the added parts. Gives a little bit more background into the characters, and I mean, I know a lot of us these days, we like the action, we like the big scenes and stuff like that. But in order to really care about the scenes, you got to get emotionally invested. You got to care about the characters. You feel like there's
Right.
no danger that they're ever going to die, or you're not really rooting for them. It just doesn't have the same impact. And one thing I like that they did do was they kind of touched more on Maximus's relationship with the sister Lucille and
Yeah, I
their
definitely wanted
history.
that fleshed out.
Yeah, and they kind of just gave us a little bit more meat there to kind of touch that out, and I thought that was an important factor too because she does so much for him too.
Right.
Obviously, she's trying to protect her son, but you can tell that there was something there. They kind of hint at in the movie, but in the theatrical, you don't really get
Yeah.
like what they're kind of talking about, and they kind of touch more on that. And I thought that was cool too, because those types of things are, like I said, it's what's motivating your hero. So you want to know, like what's keeping this guy going, besides
Right.
just pure revenge. But yeah,
Yeah.
overall, very good movie. Like we said, epic in every sense of the
Every
word. And
sense, every sense of the word.
are you not entertained, right?
Are you not entertained? Like I said, if you're not entertained, just please subscribe. So there you go.
Yeah, so there we go. Ridley Scott in his prime, and Russell Crowe in his prime, and even Joaquin Phoenix pulling a great performance. So, really good movie, fun to rewatch it. Hadn't seen it in a few years, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys have any suggestions, any future movies, please let us know, and even post your own grades. I put the grade scale up. It's always in our notes. If you ever want to do it, and just so we can compare. So from the nightcap, I think we'll call it. And cheers, everybody.
All right, have a good night. Until next time, strength and honor, guys. Strength and honor.
Strength and honor.